Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Core Truth Podcast. Thank you for joining us. And today I have Mike Reddell from Dallas, Texas. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, great, Peter. Great to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm really excited to have you on this, and it's going to be a fabulous podcast today because there's so many people in management that left being in sales. They got into management and they either had long, successful careers in management, and then they want to go back into sales to kind of wrap up their career or just make it the next phase of their career. Or maybe they went from sales into management and they were good at it, but maybe it just wasn't their thing, and they went back and they want to go back into sales. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, about how to go back into sales from management. But before we get into this topic, I really want to give you guys a little bit of background about Mike Reddell. So Mike, what did you do before Douglas Elliman?
Well, Peter, before Douglas Elliman, I had about a 15-year career in real estate and mainly focusing on development marketing all across Texas, focusing on urban infill mainly, but also condominium hotel projects. Did a fair amount of that. And then in about 2016, I met a guy in Houston that had the same vision I did for growing a small, really focused company to do development marketing and to really add value in very different ways than I think anybody else was doing it up to that time. Jacob Sudoff. So Jacob and I met. We sort of hit it off instantly because our visions were similar. Unfortunately, he was in Houston. I lived in Dallas. So we thought, well, if we joined forces, we could sort of capitalize on the momentum he'd already created in Houston and then grow the company into the other cities and deploy it into the other major cities in Texas. So we thought, at our 2 or 3 subsequent meetings, it'd probably take about 6 months. But it took about 6 years.
Yeah, every overnight success, right? We hear this all the time. Yeah.
It's sort of like a construction project, There's nothing ever is on time.
That's correct.
That's kind of what we did, and we, became really incredibly successful doing that. But mainly, in Houston, focusing on condominiums, hotel condominiums, and also we started to service new construction builders, everything from a one-off spec home to 4-packs in larger communities. And we at the end of our time together, Sudoff, I think I had about 14 agents. This was still a really small company, of which that 14 were licensed. I think there's probably only about 8 that were producing. And in 2019, we did it right at 500 million, which is a really big number, especially back then. In 2019, it's a giant number for Texas. So, we were very successful, and we were so successful that Howard Lorber actually listened to Jacob when they met. And, long and the short of it is Howard and Jacob and our team got together and, kind of did a joint venture. And long and the short of it is we were acquired, and now we're part of Douglas Elliman.
Yeah, you really are. And boy, have we grown in Texas. I mean, now we're in Houston, Dallas, we're in Austin. We have agents in San Antonio and other areas of Texas. So we're really growing rapidly there. And you are a big part of it because you actually helped us open our Dallas office, Mike. And I know it was something that, you were still very much interested in being in development. You still loved the whole sales thing, but with a little arm twisting, we got you to kind of open and manage our Dallas office. And now here we are. And what was that like for you, being a manager and opening an office? And
it was one of my highlights of my career, actually. Peter, and real estate is one of my highlights for certain. Having that privilege and that responsibility of getting the Elliman name out there and bringing on agents that I thought fit our brand, and that we could create a culture that was different, and that was collaborative and high performing, and agents that understood the value of the brand and figuring out how to take advantage of the resources that Elliman has to offer. But it's not, it's kind of it's honestly, I felt like it was a startup, but it wasn't a startup. You know what I mean? Because I was introducing it to a community that didn't really know much about it unless they were familiar with, $1 million listing and so forth, or they traveled a lot. So that part I really loved. And I just loved being around the agents and meeting people and understanding what they were doing. And, basically, selecting people who I thought and that agreed that they'd be a good fit. We did really well. I created a really nice small office of, really being a manager for Elliman for sure.
Yeah. So I know when you're building an office like that, it's a resale business, and you're coming out of development, which is slightly different. But I think Elliman is always open to where we have development projects, and where because we are master marketers and salespeople for developers. I mean, I don't think there's any company out there that comes close to our expertise when it comes to new dev. How did you combine the two, resale with that? I mean, because you had some new dev agents, you had some resale agents, and you were really I think you were really bringing us into Dallas really quickly because of both of those sides of the equation.
Yeah, well, I really saw it was real. I think it was interesting. I mean, it was interesting to me because I could see the value from an agent perspective, because I've been an agent for a long time, in several times during my career, and I actually learned how to read floor plans on Elliman's website 100 years ago. So I was familiar with the power that it had, and then I actually approached my conversations with agents the way I understood Elliman as the value proposition, and that is, gee whiz, if you're just doing resale, that's fine, but how amazing is it to have this powerhouse company that you're aligned with, that you can pull resources and ideas and so forth from a much bigger, broader sort of arena where people are, interacting in the real estate world. So I think those two things are the resale and development world are completely simpatico. And I think there's a lot to learn from each discipline, frankly.
I agree with you. In fact, probably developers could learn from us a little bit, but we can learn from developers too, because they tend to be more difficult clients and more demanding clients and more exacting clients. What would you say, and this is kind of off our conversation, but it makes me think that, there's a lot we can learn from developers, Mike. And what would you say are the key things agents could take into their resale business that you learned working for developers?
Wow, that's a great question. I think if I had to pick the one, I've learned so much in the last few years in particular, but one of my, now it's my favorite learning experience because I'm through it. But it was, one of my clients was the Carlyle Group, which is the largest private equity real estate company in the world. And they were very demanding, as they should be, because they, were representing, the money that they invested in this project. I think it was from a teacher's retirement fund in Pennsylvania or something. So they expected more from me and more from my agents than any other client I ever had. And we had, simple things like daily reports, but really, really super granular daily reports. And they expected a more high level, feedback on the way things were going versus just, Joe Smith came in, he's interested in a 2-bedroom for 1.5 million, and, he has a house to sell. So from that sort of rigor of interacting and pleasing that client, there were a plethora of things that I learned personally, and that sort of I filtered down to my team, that every project or every engagement I ever have with another client was sort of Carlyle certified, if for lack of a better way of describing it. They were just, it was like, I kind of remember some of my most demanding professors in college. That's where I learned the most. And so this client, who happened to be the most demanding, is, I attribute a lot of the things that I do now to them. So to answer your question more succinctly, what resale agents I think could do is communicate more frequently and more comprehensively with their client, and without having to be asked. So having something that, and being proactive with your communication about and not just about like how many people saw the house on the weekend, but what else sold in the neighborhood. What's the environment look like? What are you learning about that could add value to the way you are trying to sell my particular home? I think individual clients would be.
Is that mine, or can you hear me? So we lost Mike for a second, but he should be back.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. There you go.
Sorry. I don't know where you lost me.
I think we got the point. It was about the rigor and the granularity of communication and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Three things I've noticed working with developers, Mike, and I would love your point of view on this. And these are the three things they demanded of me when I worked with them. One is they always wanted to know I had process and systems,
mm-hmm.
that I was really organized. Number two is that I was really knowledgeable about the product, because to developers, it matters what the materials are, what the construction is behind the walls, and all of those things. And they want our agents to be experts in those things. And also, probably the most important thing is they want work ethic. They don't want, just us throw a sign in the ground and wait for calls to come to us. They want us to hustle. That's my experience, those three things. I don't know if there's anything else that you see. You mentioned communication and granular communication, which I agree. Was there anything else that we should probably say? Because here's what I think, Mike. If an agent wanted to really rise to the top quickly, if they treated every one of their resale clients like a developer, I think it would be a grand slam.
I agree, 100%. And adding to the conversation, I'm not sure, it kind of starts at a high level. It's like what's going on in the market in general, what's going on in the neighborhood. And then basically my developers would want to know why things weren't selling really quickly. Why is that? And
Right.
Not just because you need to spend more money. That's a terrible answer for developers. It's really, you need to go deeper. You need to, I think, challenge yourself to uncover a solution. And, frankly, one of the things that I really appreciate about going through so many developments for so long is those developments, usually the sales cycle is about 3 to 5 years. So I'd end up going through more than one little micro real estate cycle inside each development. So I was always challenged, not only because of the market itself, but also because of the stage of development. And, it helped me understand that it's not for everybody. So when, there's certain people are more amenable to buying in a pre-sale environment. Other people, there's no way in the world they would consider buying in a pre-sale environment. And it's really all about the customer and the customer's, comfort level. And really, whether they're an early adopter or whether they're a late adopter. And sometimes you just can't talk people.
Yeah.
Talk someone that's a late adopter into being one of the first people to buy. It's impossible.
But sometimes you have to.
I know, exactly. You just got to figure out. You have to figure out a way.
I think you made a great point, because I think a lot of times agents, when they're not having success in a sale of a piece of property, they want to go direct to price and get the owner to reduce prices, and that's always sort of an agent default. And the thing about developers is they're going to challenge the agent. They're going to say, like, have you looked under every rock? Have you looked behind every tree? Have you gone to the extremes? Can you show me, empirically that I should reduce this price? They're not just going to reduce, are they, Mike?
No, they're not. And, that's one of the things that from working in that environment that I have learned to appreciate more. And that is really what the impact of the decision I'm asking a developer to make by lowering prices, because they've had to have their entire project underwritten by some really smart people. And there's a lot of money on the line. And so anything that I'm asking a developer to do, spend more money, reduce pricing, anything that impacts their profitability, they have to answer to a lot of people. And so it's a really tough thing. And as an agent, I'm not sure I really appreciated that before I was working in that environment, and now I appreciate it more. But oddly, one of the things that I discovered in my quest to find a solution, Peter, and all these projects that I've done over the years, is that sometimes raising prices is the right answer. It's counterintuitive,
Right.
but you know, I honestly, I think I've generated more sales more quickly by creating a fear of missing out by raising prices.
Yeah, I've seen that work many, many, many times. So, Mike, I loved working with you as a manager in Dallas. I think you're one of the most thoughtful, caring individuals, and you did a great job for us there. And I want to thank you very, very much. But you came to me and you said, Peter, you know, I love this, but I think I love sales more, and I want to get back into production. What made you come to that conclusion?
Well, it wasn't easy because I loved working with you, and I loved working with everybody in the Elliman family in my role as a manager.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's my season in life mainly as much as anything else, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted, you know, the odd conundrum. I want more flexibility, so I'm going to, you know, be a self-employed person. Yeah, it's obviously not usually the way it works out, but going to real estate is kind of a crazy way to have more free time. But nevertheless, I thought that was part of it. A little more flexible. I have another company that my wife and I run. This is an oil and gas company, so it allowed me to focus a little more on that. But you know, mainly I just wanted to be in the arena. You know, I wanted to mix it up again. I love to learn. I've learned so much, and I love to interact with other agents, and I love to be challenged by figuring out, you know, how to get solutions to problems. And I thought, being in a market that was, you know, wobbly a little bit, you know, different than that was the last 2 or 3 years, I felt sort of presented me with that opportunity. And to get back in, roll up my sleeves, and see how I can not only do these things myself, but you know, if I can find a small team that I think, you know, would be amenable to having an older guy working with them and sharing, you know, the things that I've learned, it'd be a lot of fun, frankly. Yeah. And that's part of the business that I really like, Peter, and I know you do too, is I get an opportunity to work with so many different people, not only as clients, but also other agents. I really just crave that. So I wanted
you talk about it as our season, and I think I'm kind of tracking with you on that. I think it's our season to give back. You know what I mean? Like, we have these long, great careers, Mike, and now it's our turn to help some of these kids, you know, get to their next level and to enjoy the lives that we've had, this great career we've had in real estate. So let me ask you something. So there's a lot of managers that are, I'm sure, contemplating going back into sales right now and entering that season of their career. And I'm sure there's some managers that maybe it's not even their bailiwick. They're not enjoying that job as being a manager, and they may want to go back into sales. I've had several friends that got into management, and they were in it for like short periods of time and just go, this isn't for me. I can't get agents to do whatever I want. And we know that to be true. So you know, it's like, how do you enter back into sales? See, I know I had a great sales career, Mike. I was like top of the top. But I know if I went into sales right now, it would be starting over. It would be like, I might as well just received my license and I'm 18 again. You know what I mean? I know that. I'm not stupid. How's it been for you? And what are you observing? And what do you notice?
Well, I feel like it's a time machine that I got in about a month ago, and it catapulted me 20 years into the future, because I feel like that's sort of the equivalent difference between 2019 and today. I mean, the market and the way the speed at which things move and how they move, how deals are, how prospects are sourced. And there's just a lot of things that have changed in just a short period of time. So it's been a little humbling, frankly. I mean, I'm super excited because it gives me another opportunity to learn. It's not that I, you know, think I should shrink from the challenge, but it is challenging. And in a way, I'm not sure that I actually appreciated quite as much as I do now, being, you know, out there a little bit in the ways that it's challenging. But I'm super fired up, and I'm lucky to have an office culture where there's a lot of collaborative people. So I've been able to, get my feet underneath me pretty quickly.
So how do you source business now? That's an interesting. You made an interesting comment there. I key in on that. The way we source business today is different than the way we used to. What do you think the differences are?
Well, certainly social media plays a big role in that for a lot of agents. Um, that's a game that I haven't really played seriously and haven't invested too much time in. So, I see agents in my office, some of which 50% or more of their business is from social media. So that's not necessarily the route that I'm going to go. I have a pretty significant sphere of influence in Dallas, but my challenge is different in the old school way of sourcing business, from my friends and, business acquaintances in Dallas. And they've never really known me in the role that I'm in now. So that's kind of a challenge to step out of more of an executive role, but, into a gee whiz, would you use me as your realtor, even though 1,000 other real estate agents that you've had these discussions with and probably transacted a ton with. So that's a different kind of a challenge for me. But I think how I will source my business will be very much the same as I've always done, but it will be backstopped by some amount of social media. I'm just not going
to. Are you adverse to social media, or are you just
no?
What is it about it? Because the guy that's right here hosting our call, but Sonny from Buzzy Agents, could certainly help you with it.
Oh, I know.
He'd be more than willing to. And honestly, Mike, when I watch you on this podcast with me, I mean, you're so comfortable and natural in front of a camera, and you have so much information to offer people. You could really be an influencer, I think, in your space, particularly combining and adding value to your practice as a real estate agent by your experience with developers, as well as by your experience as an executive, because you've worked with the top agents, you've seen best practices, you've worked with developers, you know what a demanding client's about. So you have probably more to offer. And I think through social media, you could get that message out a lot faster than one phone call at a time.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the kind words. And I know about Sonny because you've told me about him many times. And as I ask you, gee whiz, Peter, how did you grow your following?
That's how.
That's
not me. Trust me.
I have a feeling Sonny and I will be in touch here shortly. But no, I'm not. Excuse me, I'm not averse to social media at all. It's just that's another sort of channel that I haven't already not mastered, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's something you just got to start and get into. Yeah, it's just that you haven't put any effort into it yet. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you also mentioned you were going to join a team. You thought, or you were looking to join a team.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you going that way?
So
instead of starting your own team, for example.
Oh, wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
It is. Then you're back to management too. That's a good point.
Honestly, I want the upside without the downside. I think is like
all right. Fair enough.
That's the human condition. But no, I think so, Peter. If I prognosticate for, like what is my career going to look like to the end? That sounds really horrible, but I think you know what I mean. Yeah. So as I tail off and begin to do less transacting and less real estate, like what does that look like, and what's that timeline look like? I think my time is better spent because I really love the team thing, and I've built teams, and I love being in that role of sort of being a coach and being sort of the guy that kind of puts things together and supports people and all that. I mean, I love that. You like
being a number two.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
I do too. I do too, kind of. I know what you mean by that.
I mean, I like being maybe the offensive coordinator instead of the head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's I think that's my expertise, frankly. And I mean, if I have any, that would be it. So, I think, gee whiz, so I have 5 to 8 years, maybe if I want to continue to do it. So how is my time best spent? And how can I have the most fun and make the most amount of money and add the most value in that timeline? It's like, holy cow, I meet a younger team that I can see a lot of potential, but gee whiz, maybe I can add a little rocket fuel to what they do. And, we're off
to the next level.
Yeah. Right, we're off and running. So
I
how
love
fun
that.
is that? I mean,
I think it's a great idea. So you're not only a team member, you're going to be like a coach to them and bring your experience. Right. I think that's brilliant. Well, one reason you are a great coach, and one reason that you are kind of my Renaissance buddy, I think of you in such kind of what's the word? I think of you as a Renaissance man. I mean, you live on a ranch, you're into poetry, you're back in school, you're studying history, you're studying ministry and Christianity. I mean, you're really attacking your life. You've got two businesses. I mean, you're living fully. You're attacking life. You're still curious. You're outworking people half your age, Mike. And I think that is such a credit to you. And talk to us a little bit about what makes you go that way. I mean, what drives you to always be learning?
I don't know. I discovered it. I was a terrible student as a kid. It wasn't like I have always been this way. I actually didn't even graduate from high school, and then got my GED when I got in the military. And then, long and the short, and then suddenly this light went on. And when I was about 20 years old, and it's been like that ever since. I don't know. Maybe I'm making up for lost time. I don't know what it is, but it's something that just satisfies this thing in me, this yearning to learn more. And it feels like my life is richer every time I discover something. I mean, I just discovered poetry a couple of years ago. I mean, I thought poetry I never read any nonfiction. I'm sorry, I never read any fiction. And then my wife sort of introduced me to poetry, and it's opened a whole nother world for me in the way I understand things. It's so invigorating that I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a good thing to really be obsessed about to learn, but I do. And I'm anxious to share. That's the other thing. When I learn something new, I want to tell everyone about it, because I want to share with them the excitement that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, that's the way things are.
I think it's great. I think everyone should be students of life, students of themselves, and really, tax your brain a little bit. You know what I mean? Strain your brain. Make sure that you're working it like a muscle. We think of working out. We think of all these things, working hard at work. But what are we doing to really work our brains and with all the Alzheimer's and dementia out there in the world, I think these kinds of things are your best preventative tactics to remain mentally healthy as long as you can, is by working your brains. And what do they say? We use like 1% of our brain. I mean, it's like there's so much capacity, and I really believe in it too. And I'm back in school too, and I'm taking college level courses. And I mean, last night my brain hurt so much it was fried, and I just had to sit down and watch something stupid on Netflix, which I did, just to kind of unwind. But some people, that's all they do is watch, Netflix. And I think it's sort of sad, because I think we're meant to learn and grow, and a life that's unexamined isn't worth living. I really believe in that.
I agree. The war, it's an unquenchable thirst. And I think honestly, Peter, for me, and I think you probably agree, the other benefit that I think I get now from, loving to read and loving to learn and being open to new things is that it makes me feel younger than I really am. So every now and then, like, I'm looking at myself on this camera, I'm not wondering why my father's on here.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
But that's, it's anyway.
Yeah, but we feel good. So let's talk about the market in Dallas a little bit.
Okay.
How is it? How is Dallas? We're hearing about, high interest rates. We're hearing about the market slowing. You know what I mean? Where, I guess the conversation is, should we curb inflation or, keep these banks solvent? I mean, what the Fed's got their issues. What are you seeing as far as activity, listings, the market? How's Dallas doing?
Well, it sounds like a broken record here, but there aren't enough things for sale. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, I've been out in the market. I've got a few buyers that I'm working with now. It's so hard to find a good house, not a perfect house, but a good house priced well or priced reasonably well to be able to actually get it under contract. Because every time I find one, which is rare, by the time we scramble around and get our paperwork together, it's there's multiple offers, and it's I think we finally got one of our buyers from California under contract last night, but it was difficult. It's the other thing I expected. Darn, man, when I thought I'd get in this market, I thought things would be different.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. There's a lot of that still going on. There's just more people. There are more buyers than there are things to buy, and prices. It's nutty. Prices have not softened, especially in these more sort of sought after neighborhoods, or even in neighborhoods that are kind of in the suburbs. Prices have not softened up. So I think that's it. Unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to kind of build our way out of this thing because with the banks acting crazy, it's really hard, I'm sure, to get a construction loan now. So that's going to further slow the new construction market. So we're going to kind of be stuck in this, slow to market new construction environment. Meanwhile, we got way more demand than supply. So
how real is the influx of people seeking lower taxes from other states that are higher tax states? Is that like California, for example?
Yeah.
New York would be another example where higher tax states.
Yeah,
Are you seeing a big influx of buyers from those states coming in?
we do. I mean,
Lost connection.
I have friends that moved from Orange County. There were 8 members of the family, and they bought 6 houses, all in Central Texas. I mean, that's just one like anecdotal story, but we see it a lot. But that's not 50% of the market. But people, Texas in general, but North Texas in particular, where Dallas is located, Dallas Fort Worth. We have so much influx of new businesses from around the country for the last 10 years. So there's just a lot more people, and there's 1 million more people in Dallas in the last 10 years, and it's nuts. The city's grown, so it's really outstripped, the ability to keep up with inventory.
Yeah. So last question, what's your advice for somebody that's, breaking from management and they want to go back into sales? What would be your advice?
I think to get started early before you make the move, to transition over, to have your plan tightened up, really kind of get real about what your plan is and what your goals are when you move over back into sales. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I mean, I figured it out. I wasn't under a big time crunch to do it. So, I did it and kind of at the pace that I wanted. And then I spent a lot of time talking to people also. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. People that you trust, people that you admire, to just chat with them about what their experiences are like, to just have a better idea of what, being back in sales will really look like.
Okay, great. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the Core Truth podcast. Wonderful to have you.
My pleasure, Peter. I'm just honored that you asked.
And I'm going to be down, I guess, at the end of April. I'll probably see you. We're doing
Perfect.
a little Ellie's event, so hopefully I'll see you then.
Well, I'll look forward to it. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you, Mike.